Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Monday, March 24th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris, Eno making sure his mic is positioned correctly. If you're watching on YouTube and trying to figure out what was happening as the show started, it was just one last second microphone adjustment. On this episode, we will teach everyone how to make their own podcast with proper mic technique. We will also go over a lot of spring training news and notes. We have extensions, we have injuries, we have conclusions to job battles, or at least the first wave of winners, because those players could quickly become losers. Doesn't take much for a job battle winner to find their way back to AAA.
Trades.
Team, a player going back to a team that traded him a couple years ago. Who would have thought that Nolan Jones was going back to Cleveland? So we'll get into all of that here in just a minute. A few housekeeping items to get to as we get started. Our 2 live episodes are coming up this week, Thursday and Friday. Bear Bottle Brewing Company, Bernal Heights location in San Francisco. Free admission, no tickets required. 4:30 start time on both of those shows on Thursday and Friday. Looking forward to getting out there, meeting a bunch of you, enjoying some Kayakers Cove, the collaboration beer that Eno helped brew over at Bear Bottle. And look, we've got a lot of fun topics and things lined up. The merch still on its way to Eno's house, I think. See if it makes it on time.
Come on,
let's go. Little shipping.
Some good news. Trevor May is going to be at both Thursday and Friday, he says. So we'll also have Ben Clemens on Saturday, on Friday. There's no Saturday. Saturday we will rest.
No pod Saturday.
It is going to be a hectic week. We have some fun guests coming up on shows before that, and we will post all of these shows in the feed for you. There may not be video of the live event, but you'll still get audio, and we hope that people can be there in person, because it's always so much fun when people are in person. Just the energy is different, and the interaction is top-notch.
Yep, it is great. Hope to see some familiar faces and some new ones out there as well this week. Let's get to our news of the weekend. 3 extensions to talk about. Let's start with Tanner Bibee, I think, by virtue of Bibee maybe being the best player that got the extension of the 3. I put him first. He wasn't actually for the most guaranteed money, but $48 million guaranteed is the number. It's a 5-year extension for Tanner Bibee. Little signing bonus in there. Does include an option for 2030 worth $21 million. And thinking about the Guardians and how they operate, and Andres Jimenez, and when he was traded, I get the sense that 2030 option might get picked up by someone else. But Tanner Bibee, last 2 seasons among pitchers with at least 200 innings pitched, is tied for 16th in ERA with a 3.24, 30th in strikeout minus walk percentage, 18.5%. Also in the top 25 in whip with a 114. So this seems like a pretty nice piece to lock up if you're the Guardians, because he is their ace. Even if he's not an ace in the Aces project sense, I think Tanner Bibee is the ace for the Guardians for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, the new addition this spring is the sinker, which I think will help offset the fact that his 4-seam is not great. But somebody who has a breaking ball as good as that slider, and by Stuff Plus it's around average, but I think it's a combination of the stuff and the fact that he has really excellent command of that slider. So I think it's a decently large mix. He throws the changeup 18% of the time, the curve 11. Now he's going to have the sinker. It's good command. It's a great slider. It's not. I don't know how much better it's going to get, and there's some regression risk, but I like that he's adding a pitch that he has used before in the sinker. He used to use it in college, and continuing to try and get better even while to sort of fight off those regression demons.
Yeah, I like that adjustment as well. The command does go a long way for Bibee, and if the 2-seamer does in fact stick, then I think that 4-seamer becomes much more stable, as you suggested. The ceiling for Bibee, kind of interesting depending on who you talk to. I saw in Zach Meisel's write-up about the extension, Austin Hedges and David Fry are among his teammates who believe he's capable of winning a Cy Young. It's good to have teammates that believe in you and think you have a lofty ceiling. And I mean, I think it's in the range of possibility. I always think of Bibee as being one notch below the typical Cy Young contender because those guys tend to be a little more in the fireballer category, right? I think it's a little bit of a velo thing. It's just like Zack Gallen. Like, could Zack Gallen win a Cy Young? Yeah, I guess he could. But I would assume there are usually 10 to 12 other pitchers that are healthy at any given time that might be ahead of a guy like that. That's sort of how I feel about Bibee.
Yeah, I mean, last year was Sale, Wheeler, Skeen, Cease in the top 4 in the National League, and Skubal, Lugo. Lugo gives everyone with a wide arsenal and command and a nice home park, like the hope, I feel like. Clase, Reagans, Burns, Gilbert, more what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, Lugo didn't win.
But thumbs up on the extension. I think it's a good one for the Guardians and good for Tanner Bibee to get some guarantees that he is happy with. How about Alejandro Kirk signing a 5-year extension with the Blue Jays? Excellent defense has become what Alejandro Kirk brings all the time. I think the questions continue to revolve around where he's going to go as a hitter, given how he broke into the league, a lot of hard contact, and looked like a guy that was good enough to be a DH on a team that had a good lineup at the time. Now it's kind of like, what's going on? The last 2 years, slugging percentage has been down in that 350s range, which is surprising. He still makes a lot of hard contact. At a glance, you're like, okay, Alejandro Kirk, it's kind of like a Keibert Ruiz profile, doesn't strike out a lot, but he hits the ball a lot harder than Keibert Ruiz does. What do you think we're going to see from Kirk at the plate over the next season or two, especially? Like maybe by the end of this deal, the power kind of tapers back to where it's been the last 2 years. But do you see a recovery at least into the 400 slugging percentage range? Do you think that's at least in the range of outcomes for Kirk?
I do. I think that's a possibility. I think the last couple of years he's been really stuck in kind of a 50-50 situation with Danny Jansen. And I think it's kind of hard to, kind of get your rhythm going when you have 386 plate appearances over the full course of the season. This year, I'd expect him to get closer to 450. In 2023, he had 422, and he was a little bit better. And then 2022, he had 541 plate appearances, and that's when he had his best season. So I think to some degree, financial security, job security, and sort of looking over your shoulder at the second catcher can go somewhere. I mean, that's all sort of, I know it's kind of like psychological stuff, but in terms of what he does at the plate, it's good. He makes a lot of contact, and as you mentioned, the max EVs suggest that there's power in there. He doesn't have a 60% ground ball rate, so I expect a 400 slugging this year from him.
I think the other thing that this kind of confirmed for me is just that the Blue Jays are putting a pretty nice premium on defense, right? They made the trade for Andres Jimenez. We've talked about Ernie Clement being a bigger part of their plan now. He was a Gold Glove finalist at third base without even being an everyday player there last year. You got Kirk behind the plate. You got Dalton Varsho when healthy in the outfield. And even Miles Straw is going to be the guy that's playing in Varsho's absence. Like, clearly, this is a team that is pushing run prevention in that way. It's something they are valuing in a big way right now.
Yeah. Maybe Bo aside. I mean, maybe he'll just bounce back defensively as well. There's a lot of great defenders, and there's another type that they're showing. I mean, with Alan Roden making the opening day roster, that's a guy who's struck out 11% in the spring and 14% in the minors. Alejandro Kirk's best foot forward is the fact that he has 11% strikeout rate for his career. Clement looks like he's going to be the starter at third. And he struck out 9% of the time last year. It was pointed out in the Discord, and I think it's spot on, is that a lot of this front office came from Cleveland. It looks like a similar idea. Push the defense, push the contact, push the walks, and hope that the power will come or just sort of keep the lineup moving. I mean, Andres Jimenez himself, 15% strikeout rate.
I wonder what that really means long term for some of the guys we've been wondering about in keeper and dynasty leagues, like Addison Barger. We talked about him, I think, on our last episode.
Doesn't fit their mold or whatever.
Right. Joey Loperfido, like how long of a window do those guys get? Is it similar to Cleveland where they end up trading those guys away and then maybe they trade back for them again? Like that's always the possibility too if you get the improvement you want. But I think you're right. I mean, I think this is generally like the type of player that they want to invest in. And even though you mentioned Bo Bichette's defensive shortcomings, that's one area where he's always been very good, tempering strikeouts. Vlad, for an elite hitter, does that exceptionally well too. Up and down the lineup, that's most of what those bats bring to the table right now. So those similarities are really kind of popping. And I think when you look at Vlad Jr., maybe the fact that he's not your traditional slugger with a 20+% K rate to go with all that power, that probably increases the probability of them actually bringing over the 500 or 600 million that he's looking for.
Yeah, he fits what they want, you know? And he's the guy like Jose Ramirez that, you know, actually hits the ball hard, you know, and does all these things as well. So Loperfido sent down, 25% strikeout rate. Barger makes the roster, but pretty much just because Dalton Varsho didn't.
Oh, Barger did get on the roster?
I don't know. It says the note that I'm looking at says he could return to the minor leagues after Varsho comes off the DL.
Interesting. I thought
there's
Barger
so much news. There's so much news coming through that like the RotoWire update might not be the most the newest news.
Yeah, I think he started the year in the minors. I think that's what they were saying with Barger. But
so does that mean Straw made it?
Straw's going to play center. Yeah, until Varsho comes back. And then maybe they'll want some more flexibility in the roster. I do think with players like Roden, especially, as excited as I am, calling him a sleeper and having this happen, he's one roster move away from just getting sent down, even if he's not playing poorly. Like that's in his range of outcomes too.
That's the hardest thing about a lot of these moves. We get excited about them. There's some good stories, but some of them are just sort of non-permanent. Kind of this is the state of the roster right now. I think I even saw this in some piece where I forget who it was. I wish I could give credit, but there was this idea that like we fetishize opening day. The opening day roster is like this big deal. You made opening day roster, whereas like many front office executives just see it as a work in progress. The roster is always something they're going to massage, and guys have to go up and guys have to go down. So. As awesome as it is that Straw makes the opening roster and Roden, you know, what happens when they're fully healthy, we don't know.
Yeah, still a TBD on the long-term opportunity for Alan Roden, even though I'm pumped that he made the opening day roster. One other extension to get to, Justin Martinez signs a 5-year, $18 million extension with the Diamondbacks. 2 club options on that one for $7 million in 2030 and $9 million in 2031. Hard to speculate that far into the future for a reliever, but if Justin Martinez is pitching as well and is healthy, pitching as well as we hope and is healthy at that point, those seem like options that would be likely to get picked up. Do you think the extension changes anything in the calculations for how the Diamondbacks will manage save opportunities? Or do you think it's just a way of having cost control over a reliever that they really like?
Why did he sign this?
I wonder if there's a few factors in play. Justin Martinez, I would say first question is, what was his signing bonus, right? A lot of small signing bonus guys end up in these situations where they're like, you know what? I want some guaranteed money. Second factor, he throws really hard, and guys that throw really hard break often. So the security of 18 million guaranteed when you may break down once or even twice in the next 5 years, I think that's probably part of what got factored into that decision.
Yeah.
Because in the scenario, think of it this way too. In a scenario where he's in a committee, or he's like the small side of a committee, especially if it's on an even share, what's arbitration going to give Justin Martinez year over year if he's not a closer?
Right, but it's those options, man. 7 and 9 million, like if he's a closer.
Those are the 2 years I'm like, ooh, like that's rough. Like mutual option maybe on the first one to hit free agency if you want, and then have the, Yeah, I
Give
think
him
that would have
1 year, and then hope that you're still a healthy closer on the end of that. I mean, it's so hard to make money as a reliever, and you have to have the elite stuff, which he checks that box, and you have to make it to free agency. So all those things, maybe he made the right decision. And from the team standpoint, yeah, now Puck is going to go through arbitration the next couple of years, and the more you give him saves, the more expensive he gets. However, you're talking about, I believe, 2 seasons of Puck you've got?
Yeah, he's a free agent after 2026. So you're already in ARB 2 and then ARB 3 for AJ Puck.
So basically, 2025 salary is set. So if you make him more expensive in 2026, A, it means he was good, right? Mm-hmm. And B, it's 1 year. And you could trade him, So I don't think this could mean something. They could give Martinez more saves now because it's not going to inflate his salary. But I think actually the way that they will run this is who's the best pitcher for us in the 9th inning.
Right. Still more of a matchup-based committee.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I've been reading about it. I still think Puck ends up leading this team in saves this year, but certainly one factor to consider, not worrying about number of saves Martinez gets, inflating his cost in arbitration. Maybe that makes him a bigger part of the plan, even if it still remains a committee. Let's get to some other news. Lots of injuries and follow-ups and different things here. I'm very nervous seeing Shane McClanahan leave Saturday's game, walking off with a trainer. And the good news here is that it's actually just an inflamed nerve in his triceps. He's already feeling better. No timetable for a return yet, but relatively speaking, just a kind of a small bump in the road is the way they're describing it as McClanahan tries to get back from a second Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, people asked if, how much I would change my ranking. I'm not sure how much I will. I only had him for 135. Like, I know that the GM said, we think 150 plus, but A, everyone hopes Spink's eternal in the spring, and B, like, he might mean 150 plus, including the playoffs. If you might want to keep some holstered at the end of the year. So I had him down for like 100, 130, 135. I don't know how much I have to change that. I mean, this just pushes his debut a little bit later and makes it more likely he gets the 135, maybe all in a row. Maybe I would bump him down to 125. Maybe I should bump him down in the rankings a little bit. I don't think that I was kind of the high man on him, but I had him 30. I guess you would have him behind Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah.
With this news. And would you... Okay, you say Kikuchi or Shane McClanahan?
Probably Kikuchi now.
Ooh. All right. You say Kikuchi or Grayson Rodriguez? I mean, not you say Kikuchi. Shane McClanahan or Grayson Rodriguez?
That's a great toss-up because I think they're on similar levels. I think the hard thing about McClanahan, and it's nerve, so you have to wait till it calms down, and that can vary quite a bit. Grayson's already throwing. He's just playing catch. Yeah. It's been about a week since he started throwing, and he hasn't had a setback. I think I would take Grayson Rodriguez over McClanahan right now, just based on my uninformed speculation that Grayson Rodriguez might be pitching in games a little sooner than McClanahan.
All right. Well, that would drop Shane down to like 46 or something.
Yeah. And it's still a situation where if you're in leagues with IL spots, happy to IL them. If you're in a league with no IL spots, especially a shallow, like a 12-team league, no IL spots, you got to wait till you get a timetable. You can't actually make a move until you get some kind of indication of whether it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks or 6 to 8, because we just don't know at this point in time. But I imagine they're going to be pretty careful with him. Zack, I think, gets a little bump in job security or opportunity in the time that McClanahan is down for the Rays. Zack Gelof needs surgery for a hamate fracture. This is a bummer because I looked at Gelof throughout the winter. I thought he was a good long-term sort of buy low and keeper in dynasty leagues because the power and speed were still there, even though things fell apart a bit for him at the plate last year. The swing and miss went through the roof. And now we're going to have to wait. And surgery for the hamate usually knocks you out for at least a month. So I don't think we're going to see Gelof back until at least May. Given that he's even less expensive than someone like McClanahan, it might be a little harder to nurse Gelof on the IL in those same kinds of 12-team leagues. And I wonder if he'll actually be a frequently cut player in leagues where he wasn't already cut over the weekend.
Yeah, he's going to be a tough one. I have him in a 15-teamer where I'm going to try and hold him a little bit, because the 15-team MI that could still maybe 2020, in 5 months of the season, is somebody that's still valuable. He was making a swing change this spring, and it had gone well by results, but the strikeout rate is worse.
Yeah, 16 Ks and 43 plate appearances this spring.
The swinging strike rate was worse. So I didn't like that little tidbit about it, but I'm still hopeful. There's a lot going on with him. I mean, he's a good athlete, and he's a good egg, I think, and he's trying to get the most out of what he's got. And I don't know that he's being supported that well by the coaching staff there, but in fact, the hitting coach for the A's is a little bit more highly regarded than the pitching coach. So I think there's a chance there that he still breaks out. It's just going to have to wait a little bit longer. And on 12 teams and 10 teams, you can wait with him on the waiver wire.
Some Dodgers updates. Freddie Freeman was back as expected on Sunday for a spring training or tune-up game against the Angels that was actually at Dodger Stadium. So good news there if you're following Freeman coming off that rib injury. Mookie Betts was supposed to play, ended up being a late scratch. There were several Dodgers reporters on this. He's still down almost 20 pounds, down to 157 pounds. Hasn't been able to keep solid foods down since before the team left for Tokyo, and may need to undergo further testing. He's on some medication right now. It just sounds like a really unpleasant situation all around for Mookie Betts that, initially when something like this pops up, you're like, okay, food poisoning, flu, day-to-day garden variety thing. Yeah, like after a week, he's mostly fine, whatever. This just seems like there's this lingering possibility that there's something they haven't figured out yet with Betts. So hopefully it's all just going to be okay. But as far as like just getting back to full strength, he's been working out. That's the weird part. He said he's felt good enough to do baseball activities despite this, which is just kind of a strange scenario. I think it was Molly Knight pulled up an old article from about 20 years ago of Jason Giambi and some Yankees players dealing with a parasite. She said it reminded her of that. It's like, man, I hope it's not like that. But just one of those stories that I think we're going to have to track a little bit longer before we really have a sense of if Mookie Betts is actually going to be okay for the Dodgers stateside opener later this week.
Yeah, we had someone in the Discord point out that the weight that he's lost may not be muscle weight, which I get that. It's he's shedding water is a nice way to say it. It's probably what out of different orifices.
Didn't need the second part. We knew what you meant, buddy.
So anyway, it could be water weight, and it could not be that big a deal. And you're right, he's working out. But what he's not doing is hitting top speed. What he's not doing is getting his bat to top speed. I doubt he's hitting these top ends of the athletic spectrum. And what happens is your body has adaptations that it makes to do those things. And so if he were a sprinter, in other words, and tomorrow he tried to sprint the 40-yard dash, he would not make a personal record.
Right. I mean, who would, right? Like it's the function of dealing with a condition like that. So
he's behind. I mean, no matter what, he's behind. He's going to have to get back up to full speed. So I can't imagine that he's going to have a great April.
Right.
Will he get it going eventually? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there was a pretty big power outage over the course of last year.
Yeah, I'm definitely growing in my level of concern with Mookie. Whereas like last week, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, knock him down a couple of spots. Don't pass on a completely healthy player near him. Now I'm kind of like, I would need to see how far he's actually falling in a particular draft before I'm like, yeah, good deal. I just don't know if there's going to be a one-size-fits-all sort of approach. But above all, I just hope he's okay.
I mean, Gunnar aside, Gunnar seems, Gunnar's not ready for opening day, but, it's a little bit different than these other ones, I feel like. It's an injury that he'll be a week behind or something, is how I see it. Other than Gunnar, I kind of don't want to take a question mark in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, understandable. No need to subject yourself to it if you can avoid it. Here's a trade, a very surprising one. The Rockies trade Nolan Jones back to the Guardians for Tyler Freeman. The reason why the Rockies did it, well, on the surface at least, Thairo Estrada has a fractured wrist. He's going to miss 4 to 8 weeks, so they needed some help at second base. And Tyler Freeman, kind of an extra guy in Cleveland. They find and develop players like Tyler Freeman about as well as they find and develop anything in that organization. So, I mean, low strikeout rate big leaguer, right? I would imagine if the Rockies hadn't traded for Tyler Freeman, maybe the Blue Jays would have called about him at some point in the not so distant future. But the problem for Tyler Freeman has been hitting the ball hard in the air. That has been the thing that's missing during his time in the big leagues, especially. He has slowly whittled away at his ground ball rate. He was at 45.2% last year. And this is the kind of player that in Colorado with a long window for playing time could actually be sneaky useful for at least deeper fantasy leagues.
Yeah. I mean, we had a question about where he would end up in Colorado at second base. And, he doesn't have it yet, right?
He's not eligible there. And I think
so. You have to play him in the outfield. So that's already annoying because even if you like him for second base for the long term, that means you have to have some sort of caddy. So you have to pick Willie Castro later to play week 1 or whatever. So that's annoying. But I do think he's probably above the Willie Castro line himself. Next up, I just ran the auction calculator for a 12-teamer really quick with regular 5x5. Nico Horner is 21st already. So is he better than Nico Horner?
I think the other part of the Tyler Freeman profile that's still an open question for me is how much will he run? He was 11 for 17 last year. He's now 17 for 23 as a big leaguer. That's with 637 plate appearances. So basically a full regular season's worth of plate appearances. That's how much he ran in Cleveland. Situationally, it's not quite the same as being an everyday player. The Rockies' philosophy about running is a little odd. I mean, maybe I'm just thinking too much about Brendan Rodgers, not enough about like Brenton Doyle. They do let guys run. Nolan Jones ran a lot, so I think it's fine. I just don't know if he will. And then like the other question is just like, okay, so if he's a 8 to 10 homer guy, even in Colorado, is a lot of the value going to come from batting average? Like that's where the question we got, I think, was from Corey.
He hasn't really done yet, but has the theoretical skills to do.
Yeah, so Corey was the one that asked the question, like where would Tyler Freeman rank as a second baseman, even though he doesn't qualify there? He only qualifies there if your league requires 5 games the previous season because he played 6 at second base last year. Over the last 10 years, BABIP at Coors for all players is 332, while it's 294 everywhere else. So for his home games, maybe a 40-point jump in BABIP. But the problem for any player in Colorado is that, yeah, you get that boost at home, but you have to deal with pitching looking different every time you leave. So you don't just get that bump. Like you get a bump, but maybe it's not as extreme as we once thought.
Yeah. I could see him hitting 275. 275, and over the full course of a full season, maybe 12 homers and 15 stolen bases. And that seems a little bit close to what we might have wanted out of Thairo Estrada. And I'm comfortable putting that up ahead of guys that I think might be timeshare utility guys like Willie Castro and Luis Rengifo. I think he ends up settling for me somewhere around Maikel Garcia and Brendan Donovan. Maybe a little bit worse than Brendan Donovan. So barely a top 20 second baseman.
Right. It might be top 20 because he plays more than some of those guys around him, but some of those other guys around him that are trying to like solidify their job will probably be better on per game basis. I think it's more of a home streamer in a lot of leagues for Tyler Freeman, deeper formats. Sure, he gets a bump and sticks on the roster now. I think the more interesting side of this is Nolan Jones going back to Cleveland. I mean, there's some possible losers in this too. We've talked about that outfield mix and John Kenzie Noel and how hard he hits the ball and how interesting he'd be if he had a full run of playing time. But Jones is a lefty, Noel's a righty. We've talked about first base and DH being kind of clogged once they brought in Carlos Santana as their Josh Naylor replacement. So this seems like Jhonkensy Noel loses playing time and becomes basically unrosterable for now in most mixed leagues. And then the interest level in Nolan Jones probably ticks down a little bit compared to where it was if he was staying in Colorado, right? It's still a park downgrade, even though it might not be as bad of a downgrade as we would have thought 10 years ago.
I mean, apparently his BABIP is higher, not in Colorado, but I don't know that I'd read much into that. What I think he can do is run a high BABIP because he hits the ball hard, and he has plus bat speed. We did point out that this spring he's among the leaders in adding bat speed, and he also did it while cutting the swing length. You can see his swing strike rate is better than it was in his breakout season. His strikeout rate this spring is better than it was in his breakout season. And I have to think that at least knowing that his bat speed is up means that he is healthy like he was in his breakout season. And so I think he could probably, still hit 250-ish, maybe even 260 with the nice BABIP due to how hard he hits it. 260 with 15 to 18 homers and 10 stolen bases in the big side of a platoon. It's going to be times in a weekly league you don't want to start him because he'll face a bunch of lefties. I'm not concerned about the results this spring, other than I think that the process stuff underneath the hood is good. And I think Will Brennan he has options, and I think he may go down to the minor leagues. Now, he's had an okay spring, but Paul Hoynes reports that Brennan may not make the roster. So there's reporting on this. There's options for Will Brennan, and it kind of seems to be pointing to Jones getting the big side of that right field platoon, and Noel, I think, just fitting into small side platoon, but getting a little bit more than a small side platoon. Maybe maybe they find ways to DH him with David Fry's going to be out, so I think every lefty Noel plays, but there's going to be some righties where I think, work him into the mix. I don't know what the rubric will be because he's now kind of fighting Santana, Jones, and Manzardo for playing time. But I don't think Noel will only get 300 plate or 200 plate appearances this year.
Yeah, this is still a depth chart with opportunity, despite Nolan Jones being there as a big side guy in one of the outfield spots. And you look at the way they project by the BATX. Jose Ramirez, 129 WRC plus. Yep, of course. He's Jose Ramirez. No surprise. Yeah. Big drop. 25-point drop to Kyle Manzardo.
Who, at 104.
Yeah, 104. Lane Thomas at 103. David Fry, who's hurt right now, at 103. Quan at a 99. A couple guys like Angel Martinez, Chase Lauder, who's hurt. Noel is a platoon guy. Burrito, who I believe has been sent down. They still.
Gilbert Arias won the second base job?
That's what it's looking like.
Gabriel Arias, sorry.
I like this move for the Guardians. I think it's a smart decision, but I still look at it and say there are opportunities here. You could hit your way into a larger role, even if the playing time doesn't look good right now, because of the quality of the supporting cast or the questions in the supporting cast behind Jose Ramirez.
Yeah. There's still a chance that Jones enters the trusted five, the rule of five, and actually, just plays despite being a left-hander. I mean, if you think about guys that you trust to bat every day in that lineup, it's a short list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a possibility that he could play his way into that core five mix.
I see a rule of two. I see Quan and Ramirez in the lineup. Everybody else on notice.
Opportunity. That's the way to look at it in the positive light. Some other news items to get to here. Vinnie Pasquantino day-to-day with a strained hamstring. His status for the opener up in the air right now. I don't know if there's anything actionable on that one. I just thought that was interesting that we were still kind of waiting further details. What I do think is interesting is the Reds with Alexis Díaz. He's got a hamstring injury. It's going to put him on the IL to start the year, but he might not be their closer anyway when he comes back. It's been a bad spring. He's got wobbly skills that I think everybody sees from a mile away. And I think my ongoing question with the Reds is, okay, if it's not Díaz, who is it? Who should it be? And there's a little bit of a where the money went. We did have our first free agent pickup in weekly leagues last night. So you had a league where I think Graham Ashcraft was scooped up.
Yeah, what league was that? $66 for Graham Ashcraft in my main event. It was opposed by a $1 runner-up bid. So that suggests that the valuations are all over the place. I do think that most people think it will be Taylor Rogers, I guess, but I would say Taylor Rogers is not what I would consider closer stuff. He's a lefty, first of all, like that, you don't always want to, cede that sort of platoon advantage with a player that, isn't that great to begin with. I mean, he's going to be facing a bunch of righties and throwing like sweepers to them. It's like that's another platoon risk situation. Just wanted to look at his fastball velocity this spring, because I know that Taylor Rogers is up a little bit, but 91.4.
Yeah, it's not quite what you're looking for. I know he's done it before.
He's not my closer. It's
because he's done it before. I think that's where a lot of our minds go first. Oh yeah, he's been a closer. Well, it's been a few years since he's had that opportunity. Home runs, I think, have also become more of a problem for Rogers. Being in Cincinnati, that's even more difficult now in his home park. I wonder, like Tony Santillan, Ashcraft.
I think it's Ashcraft.
Emilio Pagan, veteran guy that has a home run problem as well. Seems like if they go committee, then it's just a total mess. But basically, this is a long way of saying there's not an obvious, this should be the guy. Ashcraft at least would be doing something different, and he has premium velocity and could skinny down the pitch mix enough to just say, this is going to work.
And when he was bad, which he's been, he was really good for the first 2 innings. I don't know how many Graham Ashcraft starts I've been like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. What is going on here? And I watch it and I'm like, oh, okay, he's a 2-pitch guy that can't get past the 4th inning. Like his splits per inning are pretty amazing.
Yeah, for his career, Graham Ashcraft has a 3.38 ERA first time through the order as a starter. He's got a 5.06 the second time through and a 6.46 if he goes through the third time.
5.06 second time. Like he has a second time problem. I think this is the time to pull the plug on him as a starter. I think this is how it happens. And there's still an outside chance. I'd say Alexis Díaz, 10%, Graham Ashcraft, 30 to 40%, maybe 40%. Taylor Rogers, 15 to 20%, other whatever's left. I didn't do the math quick enough.
I don't know if that pie chart got filled, but we'll just let you keep a slice of it. It's fine. You made a concerted effort. It's good enough. Good enough for me. Other follow-ups here real quick. Gunnar Henderson will start the year on the IL. You kind of hinted this before. Not a shock. Probably going to be a relatively short stint, so we've made the necessary tweaks. Probably falls to the back of round 1, early round 2 if you haven't drafted yet, but it's fine to go ahead and take him there. They did confirm Félix Bautista is going to be ready for opening day, so you don't have to worry about that. I
told you so.
Yeah, you did. You put it out there. Darvish will open the year on the IL. I think fatigue was the reason he was slowed down this spring, so it's not a shocker. So that leaves the door open for Stephen Kolek to get chances in San Diego. We had a mailbag question about Kolek from Taylor A. Bauer, or Taylor A. Bauer, but probably Taylor A. Bauer if I had to guess based on where the capital letters are. Can you touch on expectations for Kolek now that he appears to be the Padres' 5th starter? 5 above average pitches by stuff last year out of the bullpen with a 110 location plus. Why isn't anyone excited about this guy?
I think it's because he lacks strikeouts. It's a bit of a sinker sweeper, like sinker breaking ball guy. And I think that the 106 stuff plus is a little soft when he is going to go 4 or 5. I bet you the stuff numbers will drop maybe even below average. But I did take a picture of what he's done this spring. And, 94 on the fastball is a little bit more than I expected with him being stretched out a little bit. So that's good news. Also, it's not just sinker sweeper and figure out the rest. He has a legitimate gyro slider there at 87 miles an hour that's been getting a 40+% whiff rate this spring. So, he's not necessarily in that Clark Schmidt, Michael King category, but he does have that sort of lower arm angle, minus extension, but putting a whole bunch of pitches around, the kind of the sinker sweeper core there. I think it could work as a starter. There's the fact that he gets 13 inches of ride off his four seam and 5 inches off his sinker suggests to me that despite the fact that 13 inches is a bad raw number, they're expecting something that drops and dives when they see that sinker. And so the difference might be enough. And he's got definite feel for what he's doing. I just don't think that this is I think I go back to the Miles Straw thing, which is, he's the guy who's getting the first start through the order, but this might just be a keep the seat warm for you, Darvish, situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like, I guess, because Cease, King, Pivetta, Randy Vasquez isn't exactly locked in either. Like, he's in the rotation, I think, right now, as it stands up too, because of the Darvish injury. So it's still like it's an extension of the fifth starter battle, because when everyone's healthy, Cease, King, Darvish, Pivetta are the first four, and then one of Vasquez, Kolek, or Kyle Hart is the five. So
and one thing is,
prolonged audition.
What did Kolek go in the last? He's stretching out, but what did he go? 3 innings or something? So if you were buying him for that first start and you're saying, I'll treat him like a streamer, you're talking about 4 innings maybe?
It's probably more of a what could go right sort of thing. I watched some Stephen Kolek video this morning, though, and I noticed that every single clip I saw, the score was Padres up or down by at least 5. And I clicked the strikeout load video on Baseball Savant probably 7 or 8 times. Like, these are all different games. It's not the same game from same clip every time. Like, this is wild. And that actually is indicative of his usage. He was just like the mop-up guy a year ago.
Would you look at his leverage index? He had leverage index comps that were like,
it was out of like 300 plus qualified relievers, he was bottom 25 in leverage index. And the only other interesting names I saw nearby, Carlos Hernandez, who actually got claimed by the Phillies this weekend, and Landon Root. But I mean, somebody has to be that guy on every team. And if you have the ability to add some length, then it could be you for that reason. Kolek wasn't chewing up 2 or 3 innings at a time, though. His number of appearances and his number of innings were almost equal. It's almost 1 inning per appearance on average. So, it's a pretty unusual situation. But I think this just qualifies as like an extended job battle. Keep an eye on him. I mean, in deep leagues, especially NL-only leagues, there might be something here because who knows? Like, Darvish's fatigue might linger longer than expected, or Kolek might outperform Vasquez. Like, we've looked at Vasquez in the big leagues longer, and he hasn't been able to make it all click. So maybe Kolek has a chance to, push that slider a little bit more and find a way to miss a few more bats. But it's an interesting name to file away.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'd land on this one.
I mean, like, if you're looking for a model darling there, to some extent, Randy Vasquez, who has been starting and getting an above average whiff rate, and an above average stuff plus on most of his pitches on a big wide selection, has been okay this spring, has been pretty good this spring. And I think he's outdueling Kyle Hart. So my bet for which of the 3 would stick longest and have the most starts this year will be Randy Vasquez.
There you go. Eno likes Vasquez of that bunch if you're trying to find value in the back of the Padres rotation. Back to some other news and notes here. Jung-Ho Lee returned to action for the Giants on Sunday. Some good news is he's slowed by a back injury, so it looks like he'll be fine for the opener in Cincinnati. Gerard Encarnacion had surgery for a fractured hand. Just a bummer if you were trying to stash him away as a late sleeper. Probably going to be at least a month or so before he's able to come back, so not worth really holding on to in most situations, but maybe worth putting on a watch list for later because he'll eventually challenge Wilmer Flores for some playing time in that Giants infield DH mix. You suspected this one all along. Ranger Suarez will begin the season on the IL, so Taijuan Walker will temporarily fill in as a starter for the Phillies. A couple of other waiver
Suarez
claims.
has made some starts, so can they backdate it, or did they do minor? No, he did actual starts.
One was his last actual start, though.
Yeah, it might have been that one I was watching as Will Warren. That was
probably far enough away where it's not going to make a big difference. Still hopes to return sometime in April. So I don't think it's a long-term absence, but one that you got to account for with your early season lineups. Ryan Yarbrough is a Yankee now, so I'd lump these three together. Ryan Yarbrough to the Yankees, Carlos Hernandez claimed by the Phillies, and Mike Vasil claimed by the White Sox. Vasil was a Mets prospect that the Rays ended up with, so now he's going to probably be like the White Sox number 3 starter or something this year because they're just trying to fill seats. But any interest in any of those 3 guys landing in new spots?
God, who was I talking to that was a teammate of Mike Vasil's? It came up in one of my spring training conversations. So weird. Oh, Sienna? Somebody's coming out. Is that a Sienna thing? Who was talking about Sienna? Anyway, I like the Carlos Hernandez one the best. Of course I do. I've been rooting for Carlos Hernandez to make it forever, it seems like. The problem, of course, has been command, but the Phillies have had success with guys like this and seem to shop in that bin. Carlos Hernandez throws gas. I think there's a good season or 2 in him for sure.
Yeah, curious to see what kinds of tweaks they make there. He's always had a pretty wide arsenal for a guy that's been stuck in the bullpen as well. So we'll see where it goes from here. Job battle related news. How about this one? Kristian Campbell makes the opening day roster for the Red Sox. Will he be on it? Will he not be on it? Blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. He's on it now. Now the question is just, is he going to stay on the roster? That's the big question. I think this is going to cost you a lot more as far as speculating in remaining drafts because we have that confirmation. Things were sort of trending in the positive direction over recent days in spring training. 18 strikeouts in 59 plate appearances so far this spring. We saw it last year with Jackson Chourio. It takes time to make the adjustments to the big leagues, right? So even if you love Kristian Campbell, you're probably going to have to see it through some inconsistencies, at least at the beginning of the year, and maybe even some actual like below average performances because this depth chart is so crowded. I wonder if we'll see as much patience with Campbell as we saw that the Brewers had with Chourio a year ago.
Yeah, I don't know. Like David Hamilton is a credible starting second baseman, in my opinion. 27 years old, 1.7 WAR in 317 plate appearances last year, not buoyed by some crazy BABIP. I've heard from the Red Sox that their internal metrics are even ahead of the defensive metrics that are public that say that Hamilton's a pretty good defender, despite some slightly weird actions, not necessarily looking the part, but doing the part. And he's been striking out less this spring, and that fits his minor league profile. Hamilton is going to make this team as a utility infielder. The question just is, how much does he play? How much does Campbell play? If Hamilton is successful when he plays and Campbell is not, like how long will they let that happen? That's just a longer-winded way of saying the same thing you said. I mean, it's like I like David Hamilton. I picked up David Hamilton, this weekend in a couple places where I really needed MI. I think he'll play. Eventually, he could take shortstop from Story. I just don't know where you put Story after that. And I wonder if there's any give to that center field situation.
The center field situation as it stands right now
is Rafaela, I think, because Roman Anthony's not on this team. Wilyer Abreu is going to make the team, it looks like.
Yeah, he was dealing with an illness for a good chunk of spring training too, but he seems to be fine. Yoshida's not ready for the start of the season. So Devers is the DH. Bregman's at third. That's why Campbell's at second. The
reason Yoshida's not ready is because he has to do a throwing program because I guess they want to play him in the outfield.
But if Bregman's going to play third and Devers is going to DH, then they have to play Yoshida in the outfield. They're going to play him at all. which eventually just squeezes Jarren Duran back into center field, puts Rafaela in a backup role or a AAA at some point if they want to send him down there. So it's one less spot to be able to utilize as you move pieces around if you have to go about it this way.
Yeah, I mean, there's just at some point though, Story is 32. He wasn't such a plus at short that I think that he's going to Brandon Crawford this until he's 35, So at some point in the next couple of years, Story's going to lose his job at short defensively. So I can't read the tea leaves that well here. My instincts are like David Hamilton will play a lot, but maybe not.
I think he'll play enough for mono leagues consistently, but I think he's going to be on and off rosters a lot otherwise because Campbell will be a priority and health could shake this whole thing up. But I think if Campbell stays as a fringy, like top 200 guy for these last few days of draft season, that's still a gamble well worth taking. If it hits, you're going to be really happy. If it doesn't, you're only out a 15th round pick, 14th round pick. Not a big deal to lose that pick at that stage for the possibility of 5 category production.
There's like a little bit of this with like Julio Rodriguez, when like he's making the team, right? But and that was a great pick to have at the end of that. There was a time period where you could get Julio Rodriguez sort of later in the draft than you expect, and you didn't have to pay the huge like prospect tax because people didn't think he was going to make it. And then he got all the steam, and then he made it. And so I want to say that this is similar to that, except that Julio Rodriguez was raking.
Yeah, so Campbell didn't have that spring.
Weird. Yeah, it's a little bit weird to be talking about this. Like, he made the team, and he did what this spring? So this is about organizational faith, and they must be talking about how he's taking these at-bats, and there's something changing that they see that they really like.
Did Jordan Walker mash the spring that he made the Cardinals and then got sent down a month later because he really hadn't played that much in the outfield, though? Like, it just any combination is possible. This is the long view. They clearly believe in Kristian Campbell. It's nice to see him getting the opportunity. I'm still in as long as that pick isn't much above that pick 200 mark, because I think it's a definite what could go right situation that you want to be connected to. All right, here's some more roster battles for you. Quick thoughts on these ones. AJ Smith-Shawver wins the number 5 starter job for Atlanta. Ian Anderson gets traded to the Angels, who always seem to end up with the starters that don't make the Braves. I think Tucker Davidson was one that they scooped up a couple of years ago. But with thoughts on Smith-Shawver?
I'm in. I think as long as I'm not spending a lot, but Smith-Shawver this spring has shown us what is this? Yeah, I don't believe that number. A 39 stuff plus.
Yeah, there've been some questions about the spring stuff plus. Part of the reason the numbers are stretched high and low is because everything's still normalized off of 100 and it's a tiny sample. Is that what happens?
Well, I mean, actually, it's because it's a huge sample. It's a huge sample of pitchers, not a tiny sample of pitches per pitcher. Right. But because there's 1,100 pitchers in the spring and only 390 make rosters, that means there's a lot of bad pitching that's stretching the stuff plus in universe in the spring. The other thing is we don't have arm angle, and arm angle is important. We are trying to figure out a way right now to impute arm angle. So we have to create a model that creates an arm angle and fills it in. So that's what we're going. That's what we're working on. Matt Denton was hard at work on that. He got to a good R squared, and so we have a good feeling that going forward we'll be able to do some low minors stuff and some spring with arm angle in the future. So that's something that's out of this, and it makes it really hard to kind of fully invest in these numbers. But when I watched Smith-Shawver this spring, and I liked what I saw, I think he's maturing. The command was a little bit better and crisper this spring, and I keep wanting him to throw a good slider. It's not something that he's quite done yet, but a guy that has that kind of a curveball, I feel like should be able to do it. This spring he has thrown. Let's see what he's thrown this spring. That's weird. I don't even know why honestly, I don't even know why Smith-Shawver is in my Stuff Plus numbers, because if you do a search on StatCast, you don't get anything.
And that's what someone was asking in the Discord too. Is like, how did that number even come into the sheet? Because he wasn't pitching in parks that had StatCast.
Well, I asked the team. I don't have an answer yet. Somebody who can spin it that well on the curveball, I think will find a hard breaking ball. And the Stuff Plus model loves his changeup. So there's the beginnings. I think this might be one that could take some time, but like then you look at his spring and it was pretty good. So anything can happen. He's better than Ian Anderson, I think. And so do the Braves.
Yeah, that was their assessment too, getting a lefty reliever, Jose Suarez, back in the Ian Anderson trade with the Angels. Matthew Liberatore, number 5 starter for the Cardinals to begin the season. So Steven Matz to the bullpen, Michael McGreevy to AAA. According to Ali Marmol, this will be a prolonged opportunity for Liberatore to show what he can do as a starter. Is there any reason to believe things will be different this time around?
I mean, the stuff numbers on his 4-seam are good this spring. Again, that's without arm angle. I do like the fact that at this point he is throwing 5-6 pitches. It's a wide array of pitches that we're seeing from Liberatore, and I think that they're changing their processes under the hood in St. Louis and getting better. But 95 miles an hour sitting on the 4-seam fastball as a left-hander with 17 inches of IBB, a sinker that has 13 inches of IBB and 13 inches of run, a slider at 87. That's kind of a gyro slider, a cutter at 91, and a 78 mile curveball. It's really big. It's starting to look like a real arsenal, and this is probably the best his arsenal has looked. I like him as like a home play for now.
All right, home streamer, but yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on there. Kind of quietly pushed his K rate to a career best, 21.2%, working mostly out of the pen last year, 11.6% swing strike rate. Nice to see that too. And
14.5% swing strike rate 14.5% strikeout rate this spring though.
Yeah,
temper your expectations a little bit.
Yeah, no, it looks like a developing back-end starter sort of arsenal, not a former prospect figuring it all out at once sort of arsenal. Logan Allen's going to be the number 5 starter for the Guardians. Tristan McKenzie to the bullpen. Any interest in Logan Allen?
Yeah, this one I got wrong again. This is the thing where you're like looking, they don't have options. You're like, oh, they'll just put him in the rotation because they didn't have options. Well, there are other options for teams. You can keep him on the roster in the bullpen.
But yeah, what do you think about McKenzie as a reliever? That might even be more interesting long term than Logan Allen as a starter.
Yeah, he could air it out, and I'd love to see what the velo looks like in short bursts. I get this. My spidey sense tells me that like he could be someone that could, because on average, when you go from the pen to the rotation, you add like a tick and a half or 2 ticks, right? I could see it being different for him because he's struggled to maintain velo. He's shown us some better velos in at different times, and I could see him maybe jump into 94, 95, 96 even. Maybe not his first year. One thing I have noticed with people that go to the bullpen is the big velo boost comes in the second year. Because he's trained all offseason to be a starter, right?
Yeah, you're right. Like it's a different approach throughout an entire winter. I think that gets you to unlock that sort of max comfortable sitting velo working out of the pen. As far as Allen goes, I mean, he's 26 now. I think we were excited about him a few years ago. His second round pick back in 2020. Is it kind of like the Matthew Liberatore, just a guy, use him for home streaming, and that's sort of the extent to which you're interested?
I mean, he does have a better strikeout rate this spring than Liberatore.
The model doesn't like anything about him.
No, it does not. I'm trying to see what his spring looks like, if I've got any numbers here. 4-seam fastball at 91 miles an hour with 16 inches of vertical break against a sinker that has 9 inches of vertical break. Yeah, these are uninspiring numbers. A sweeper with 14.5 inches of glove slide sweep. That is really good. So he's got a big old sweeper and everything else is mediocre. I think what you are seeing, though, is he threw 52 sweepers this spring against 77 four-seamers. So he is leaning hard into his big sweeper. We could see okayness.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be short starts, though. I feel like it's going to be a lot of 2 times to the order, and then let's use the bullpen depth this day. I think that's going to be how they go about it with Allen.
No other model likes him either. And the velo being so low on the fastball just brings your ceiling down so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a nice story, but not necessarily one that I'm chasing from a fantasy perspective. Not surprising, Brandon Pfaadt keeps the number 5 starter role over Jordan Montgomery. Montgomery headed to the pen for now. Could still be traded if the D-backs eat a lot of the money that he's owed. We'll see how that one plays out. Here's the one that everyone's upset about. This will be the last one for today. Carmen Mlodzinski is getting the first crack at the number 5 starter job for the Pirates. So it looks like Thomas Harrington is headed down to AAA. And Mlodzinski's last full season as a starter was at AA in 2022. So it's been a few years, but he's been stretching up to 3 innings in his last spring outing. It's been pretty decent as a reliever, 2.91 ERA for his career, 80 Ks and 86 and 2/3 innings. Nothing amazing, but just, a useful big league pitcher. And I think people are generally upset. Pirates fans, understandably upset because they want to see all the prospects. And I just wondered, we were talking about pitching archetypes and how organizations find a blueprint for something that works in development or in planning, and they just kind of stick with it. I mean, look what they just did with Paul Skeens. This is what I tried to put out there in the Discord. Skeens came into last season with a known workload restriction, right? And they handled him very carefully. They bumped his workload, I think, by about 30 innings compared to what he did the previous year. Kept him in the minors, short-started him, built him up, backloaded it, and did everything they thought they should do to keep him healthy, and it worked, right? It looked good. Looks like a good idea. If you consider that Bubba Chandler threw 119 and 2/3 innings last year, and Harrington threw 117 and 1/3, and Braxton Ashcraft only threw 73, you could look at all 3 of those guys and say, if you want them available in August, September, and October for a possible push toward a wild card, then you need to slow play them early, right? So I think that's probably what's happening here. It's that they don't want Bailey Falter and Mlodzinski and Andrew Heaney to be pitching the bulk of their innings later. They just want to make sure their most effective young guys have something left in the tank when it matters the most. Is this a fair explanation for what the Pirates are doing right now?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, that's why you sign somebody like Andrew Heaney as well, right? You definitely aren't signing Andrew Heaney to start a playoff game for you. No.
He's someone that helps you get there, and then he might be one of your last pitchers on your playoff roster if someone does get hammered. And you got to chew up 2 or 3 innings or something in a game, and just want to keep everybody else fresh. Like maybe there's the use case for that, but I think he's more of a gets you through the regular season type pitcher.
What could be exciting about Carmen? I'm looking at his numbers, and a 95.5 fastball velo this spring, even as he has started 2 games and done 9 2/3 innings in 4 appearances, is somewhat interesting. Also is the fact that, the Pirates seem to be pretty strongly on the kind of multiple fastball. We talked about this with Luis L. Ortiz and Osvaldo Bido. So Carmen coming out here has a 4-seam and a sinker and a gyro slider. That package there, that's the sort of baby Pirates package, it seems like. And then he adds to it a sweeper that has gotten 25% whiffs, which is not really that good. That's whiffs over swings. So that's not that great a number. It only has 9.5 inches of glove side movement. You're kind of looking for like 12 plus out of sweepers. So not a great sweeper. The changeup has gotten 67% whiffs this spring. It's 87 miles an hour. It looks very different than his 4-seam. So it's possible that he has 4-seam sinker, gyro slider, changeup with good velo and numbers in the spring that suggest that he might not strike out everybody that you want him to, but that he could be good. So again, home streamer.
Yeah, home streamer, and probably someone that I like better than Bailey Falter. If you said who's going to make more starts or be more valuable as a starter to the Pirates this year, I think it's Mudzinski over Falter. And you think about Skeens again from last year. He debuted on May 11th. So put that on your calendar as a rough estimate of when we might see the likes of Chandler or Harrington or Ashcraft. And Ashcraft might be the latest of all, because I think his injury history is a little bit longer than the other two. So they may decide to use shorter outings for him at AAA longer. Maybe Ashcraft comes up in June, or maybe it just comes down to spot starts and who's actually on schedule too. That's the other factor for temporary opportunities. But as far as a long-term opportunity goes, I think we're waiting for at least the early part of May for the likes of Harrington and Chandler.
Chandler didn't beat the door down, and it is a little sad that they're not going with Harrington, but I think we'll still see innings from him. That's what you're saying. Hey, I know I talked too much, but we didn't do where the money went. I'm going to run through it real quick. Brett Beatty, $37 in main event. That's an interesting name. Maybe not for your 12-teamers yet, but he got that job and he's running with it. Tyler Freeman for $13 in the main event. Over in Barf, the big one was AJ Smith-Shawver for $115. Mike Clevenger is going in a bunch of places. I think he's the closer. Went for $85, which is too much for me for a closer on a bad team. Jack Leiter was a big buy, and Ben Rice. I got had Ben Rice on the listener league. I added Chris Bryant in the listener league.
Oof.
Why not, dude? It was $1. And we've seen some Charlie Morton. I got Brett Beatty and David Hamilton. I wish that he was the starting second baseman. So that's not amazing for me. And last but not least, the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational. Jack Leiter, 101. Mike Clevenger, 81. Dickie Fitz, $68. Too much for me. That's just a really tough park, and Brian Bayo's coming at some point. That could be a short-term gig. Curtis Mead, $61. $1 was the runner-up. That's because Curtis Mead, we don't know he's going to play. I frantically, before I did my FAB last night, I was asking JH about what we thought about Mead's playing time, and we couldn't figure it out. It's Aranda, who's a lefty. So then Mead's small-time DH, unless he plays Aranda out of a role. But Aranda has some really nice batted ball stats. The last one, I got Nick Gonzalez for $13. They sent Nick York down. I think Nick Gonzalez is the every down starter at second base. That means something in 15-team leagues. I
tried my best to very rationally get on board with the Pirates doing with their pitching, and I think I generally agree with the approach with the young guys. I'm not gonna drag them for not putting all those guys in the rotation. I'm surprised Nick York isn't finding a spot to play in this lineup. And they sent Henry Davis down.
Mm-hmm.
That is brutal. What does that say about Henry Davis's long-term future that he just got optioned?
I don't know. I don't know. Andrew Rodriguez is good. Joey Bart is good. I think it means that they think he's a catcher. And they're not sure he's one of the three best catchers.
Yeah. I don't know, man. We'll see what he's playing, where he's playing at AAA to begin the year, if they're still giving him run behind the plate or if they're moving him to the outfield. But for now, it's Pham, and then, of course, Cruz in center with Brian Reynolds. That's part of it, right? They added Tommy Pham. They're going to play Tommy Pham. They brought McCutchen back, so they made DH a little more crowded. And we'll see how it plays out for the Pirates in the early weeks of the season.
There's always the chance that the veterans don't play that well, and I doubt they'd release Andrew McCutchen. It'd probably be more of a Phantom IL or something, but they have no allegiance to Tommy Pham.
Right. If Pham struggles, they could move on accordingly. Well, we covered a lot of ground because there was a ton of news, and there's probably going to be more news between now and tomorrow, which is good because that means tomorrow's rundown is already being written by the powers that be, which is phenomenal. Join our Discord if you haven't done that already. You can do that with the link in the show description. You can find Eno on Blue Sky, enosaris.bsky.social. I'm dvr.bsky.social. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Tuesday.
Thanks for listening.